Wow, I got through that second playthrough way faster than the first one, huh? So before I talk about the ending in this run, I actually just want to go over how I didn't even mean to get this ending. This was my first time seeing this ending as well. So another fun fact about neutral runs in Undertale, if you ever kill someone before getting to Undyne, she'll actually refuse to hang out with you, so I purposely avoided killing anyone so that I could show off some of her phone call dialogue with Papyrus, because there's going to be a lot of runs where I kill people before getting to Undyne, so I figured this would be one of my only chances to show off some of that dialogue. But that ended up triggering a completely different ending, and honestly, couldn't be happier about it. This ending was really interesting. So of course, in this ending, Undyne basically feels really betrayed, obviously, because I, emotionally manipulated her. That I did do on purpose, and that led to her being very mad and stuff, and yeah, that's pretty much it, but something else I want to point out here, you might notice that this ending, for the most part, was actually really similar to another ending, which you basically get if you spare everyone, but you don't befriend all the characters in order to get the true pacifist ending. The only difference was that at the very end, Papyrus talked about how Undyne felt betrayed and all that. And the reason I want to talk about this now is because there's actually quite a few neutral endings that are very similar and just have slight differences like that. And those are actually things that I want to avoid throughout the Flowey route, because otherwise I feel like things would get really repetitive and boring after a while. So I'll still try to show a really good amount of endings that are interesting, have variety, but I won't be showing every single variation like this. So yeah, technically this was a kind of ending that I wanted to avoid, but I'm so glad that I showed this off just because I do think it is really interesting, the attention to detail that you can befriend someone and then do something that they don't like and that causes them to hate you by the end of the story. So all in all, this was still a really interesting ending. So now I want to talk about something really interesting. So at the beginning of this run, you'll notice that both Toriel and Papyrus seem to have some slight sense of deja vu, like they've met me before. And this is because I did a regular reset after the first run, and so they just slightly seem to remember some of the events of the first playthrough. This is interesting because I think it gives us more insight once again about Sans and how he can keep track of how many times he's killed us and all that. So I think Sans has pretty much just as much awareness about the resets as other characters do, except for some reason he's had it confirmed to him in some way that yes, there are multiple timelines and all that, and so he just pays better attention to that sense of deja vu, and he also just uses his intelligence to figure out things about us. Speaking of Sans, his first neutral judgment here was pretty funny, and I look forward to seeing some more of his entertaining tips and tricks on how to not be a bad person and whatnot. Anyways, moving on to a little Easter egg that we also saw at the beginning of this run. So at the end of the ruins, when we went all the way back to where we started, we see Toriel taking care of this bed of golden flowers. So many of you probably already know, but in case you don't, This bed of golden flowers is actually where Kara is buried under. So it's kind of bittersweet to see Toriel just actively taking care of the flowers here, because before Kara died, they actually asked to see the flowers from the village, so it is pretty implied that Kara had quite an interest in flowers, especially these golden ones, it seems. Well, anyways, that's all the technical jargon I wanted to talk about. So let's just real quick talk about something random and fun. So I decided to talk about specifically the theme, It's Raining Somewhere Else. So this is what plays when you're talking to Sans at the MTT resort, and he talks about how he met Toriel and all that. And what's actually really interesting about this theme is that the melody that plays throughout most of the song is actually the same as the silly theme that plays whenever Sans is doing his usual theme. What I like so much about this is I feel like it represents how his regular theme is what you see most of the time, Sans being silly and all that. But this theme is kinda his darker side. And when it first starts playing, it does sound really sad, but as it goes on, it sounds a bit actually more hopeful and happy in a way to me. And I think that does kind of represent how, Sans, he is, kind of sad about things. Things aren't great, but he still does make the most of the situation he's in. And he still does, have close friends and, people he likes and stuff like that now. And he still has his brother. So, to a degree, Sans is happy with the life that he has now. And I feel like this, in a way, is kind of his true theme. At least that's how I like to think of it. It's also just one of my favorite songs in the soundtrack, so I guess there is some slight bias there. But yeah. Well, anyways, I got a good amount of the dialogue that involves being violent and being pacifist out of the way. So I think throughout most of these runs, I'll kind of just be able to ignore a lot of dialogue and skip it and just talk about a bunch of different stuff related to the game. So I'm looking forward to the next run. Let's see who lives this time.